Welcome on in to the Friday, November 15th edition of the Skolcial Network. I'm Jason Harmon, wearing the jersey of a man who may or may not have had a surgery or what is considered a surgery. We'll talk more about that. But Brev's here, repping the Wild, and I think that's the only Vikings shirt I've ever seen you in. I've seen the
Breaking
beanie.
news. I think this is the first time I've ever worn a Vikings top on maybe VikesNow. And I've been doing VikesNow since February. Definitely the first time Skolcial Network. But I had to rep the Wild because of the shutout dub last night that I didn't watch a single second of. So
Great fan. Let's go ahead and dive into it. Obviously, the Vikings head to Nashville this weekend, or as I'm calling it, Smashville, because their defense is actually pretty dang good, which we'll talk about. But first, I had, again, internetless Brev, or socialist. Nope. I was going to say
uh,
socialist, like
mm,
social media list, but it came out socialist.
what's on your mind?
There's a political accusation for Brev. But uh,
Definitely.
I had to break the news of McCarthy's second surgery and then walk back like 10 times as more news and clarity came out. Are you worried at all about this? Technically, I guess the only operation part was doing a scope to make sure it looked good, and then they gave an injection.
I think I was listening to Tyler Fornes's show over at Vikings First and Skull, and what he was, I mean, it's kind of like what they did. I don't know if it's routine, but it seemed to just be like a checkup, like a pretty common thing, just to make sure everything's cool because like swelling can happen. It's not part of the process, but like it's not unheard of. Um, but since that, I don't know if anything else has come up about it. Like if it was so, like if it technically, I heard that like the tweeting about it from the reporters was weird. Like it's not a surgery, but it was a surgery.
So the
In the
the
technical.
injection wasn't a surgery, but apparently before the injection, just to make sure nothing else was wrong, they did scope out the knee, which
Yeah.
is even though nothing was damaged when they looked at it, nothing was going wrong. When they went in to examine the knee, it is technically an arthroscopic inspection.
Yes. But to answer your question, no, I'm not worried. They made it
Yeah.
very clear the timetable is the same. So
Yeah. I obviously the thought of like him having swelling as he ramped up is probably the thing that scared me most. But from what I've seen, it's actually pretty normal, depending, and it probably is a sign of where his meniscus tore because the inner part of the meniscus doesn't get any blood flow. So it's very normal for it to heal slowly or cause swelling. So that's probably what that bio injection was. I. I'm not even gonna. I saw people saying it was plasma. I saw people saying it was stem cells. I'm not even gonna pretend to know what it is. But as long as our prince, our sweet prince, is okay. Um,
well, even thinking
and
about it, like I know it's felt like centuries since the surgery happened, but like we are still closer to this original surgery occurring than we are to when we thought he was going to be healthy since he got the full repair. So like we're still early in his recovery process technically, even though it's not a super long. I mean, it's a season-ending process, but
I get what
we
you mean.
we're still fine. I think.
I get what you mean. And at the end of the day, people I think are freaking out because they don't trust Kevin O'Connell anymore. I personally, I think I don't really feed into the whole like Kevin O'Connell lied about McCarthy because technically before McCarthy had his knee checked out, he literally just said I tweaked my knee coming down the stairs,
Yeah.
and they were working with what they knew at the time. I think Kevin, he doesn't flat out say somebody's going to be out an extended amount of time, but if somebody's not going to play a game or something, he has things that are very specific that he says to let you know ahead of time that they're probably not going to play. And he just kind of seemed super nonchalant. He didn't seem super prescripted about McCarthy. He didn't even proactively bring it up. So I'm not too worried. Obviously, it's not great to have knee surgery at 21 at any rate. And the swelling complication doesn't make me feel warm and fuzzy, but I think I'm not panicked. I think, if anything, I'm more panicked about the fact that his knee is going to be protected by somebody else with a busted knee. As much as I love Darisaw, who knows what his recovery is going to look like. So Yeah.
I mean, O'Connell, he just does a bunch of coach speaking, and like almost all the coaches do that. I know, like nowadays, modern NFL head coaches, like you have your personalities, like Dan Campbell and whatnot, and they're like, I don't want to say they're super duper upfront about everything. Not that Kevin O'Connell isn't, but like maybe we're just kind of used to Mike Zimmer being very matter of fact, very frank, and Kevin O'Connell's kind of just, I think you had a good word, nonchalant about it.
Yeah, but it is also the things I love about Kevin is when you could tell he's pre-planned something he really wants to get across, and with things like Cashman's injuries, it was very clear that he had kind of a pre-canned response ready to go to leave room, but also kind of quell expectations. This didn't seem like that. It seemed his responses seemed very natural and conversational. But with that, prayers up for JJ. Hope our boy's good. Uh, but we're heading to Nashville this weekend, and I don't mean you or I because Broke Boy Gang. Go ahead and support Dr. Squatch or SeatGeek if you want to send us to a game. We'll talk more about that. Uh, Tennessee, I've largely seen in power rankings ranked even below. It's 50-50. The Jags, probably because of their offense, but their defense, I know they gave up what 27 to the Chargers, but they're not bad on defense.
Their defense isn't bad, but it's hard to tell how good Tennessee's defense is because they allow
They're
the least amount of yardage per game, but they allow like the third most points in the NFL, and that just makes it very clear that the Titans' offense is very bad and puts the defense in very bad spots. I mean, when you have a team that's quarterbacked by Will Levis and Mason Rudolph, that's not surprisingly going to be the case. But yeah, Titans offense, it's not the best defense in the league, which like a lot of people take total yardage allowed per game and like, oh, they must be the best team in the league. They're not. But
29th in scoring defense with
yeah,
27. Only teams with more are the Raiders with 28, the Cowboys with 30. Half of those came in the Lions game, and then the Panthers with 36.
yeah, and it, they are very stout defensively because I don't have the metrics off the top of my head, but it shows that they are at least a good defense. But if you're going into this weekend thinking, oh no, the Vikings are facing the best defense that they faced all year, and they just put up 12 points on Jacksonville, who by EPA have the worst defense in the NFL. This is going to be awful. It's really not that. So
Yeah.
good defense,
I,
definitely better than Jacksonville, but
I mean, here's the thing I've come to accept about the Jacksonville game is uh, the entire team did great except one person. Like
yeah.
we were, and even then, Darnold had really good moments. Like he obviously helped to play a major role in the fact that team did move the ball so efficiently. He just turned it over at the worst possible time. So I'm not saying that's not an issue. I'm just saying like overall the Vikings by all measurable standards dominated that game. So I'm not like throwing up panic. Now, overall yardage, you are correct. They were first. They're now second to the Eagles with allowing 273 yards per game. But then again, you look at the Eagles, they've only allowed 18 touchdowns. The Titans and Texans, who are 2 and 3 in total defense, have each allowed 27. And like the
Mm-hmm.
next three teams have 18, 18, and 12. So there are some outliers there. Passing defense, they have specifically the top ranked passing defense yards per game 156. The Vikings are we're better than the Lions now, 26th. Vikings have allowed 14 passing touchdowns. Titans have allowed 13. And then when it comes to rushing defense, the Vikings are number 2 and the Titans are I believe number 13 and have allowed 10 rushing touchdowns.
Yeah,
Vikings
and
have only allowed 4 rushing touchdowns. That's kind of impressive.
yeah, the Vikings by some metrics have the best run defense in the NFL, but yeah, and this is going to be football guy talk. I'm going to sound way smarter than I really am. Where the Titans match up really well defensively against Sam Darnold and the Vikings offense in general, because underlying metrics, saying the metrics word a lot today. Sam Darnold has thrown per NFL Pro has thrown 9 of his 10 interceptions this year against split high safeties. And only 4 of his 17 touchdowns this year have come against that. When he's attacking man, it's going to be, he's like 13 touchdowns, 1 interception. So the Titans play split safety at the 11th highest rate in the NFL and allow 6.4 yards per pass attempt. So Sam Darnold kind of plays right into the hands of what the Titans want to do. And L'Jarius Sneed is out, which is obviously only going to help the Vikings. But with what with Sam Darnold's tendencies and Justin Jefferson, you can call them struggles against split safety looks. The Titans kind of match up well in that regard. And even the things that the Vikings passing offense are at the top of their game at, like passing off a play action, which Minnesota ranks decently at. The Titans are like, they are in this within the same ballpark defensively playing against it. Passing against no pressure, I think the Vikings are pretty like high up there. And then I don't remember the exact numbers. I just don't want to get them mixed up. And then the Titans with no pressure because they're so good at playing that split high safety and just dropping back in the zone. The Titans match up really well if you are the Titans against what the Vikings offense likes to do. So that's why I'm kind of concerned.
I hear you. I would disagree that it's what the Vikings offense likes to do and what Sam Darnold refuses to do instead.
That's also fair. Yeah.
Because with those split safeties and Jefferson getting bracketed, everyone else is open.
Yeah.
Like if I understand that you're a bridge quarterback, you want to look good. The best way to do that is to get the ball in the hands of your generational receiver. And great. But you have Jordan Addison, you have TJ Hawkinson, and TJ Hawkinson did really well the other day after you were bad mouthing him. Picked up some
Congrats, DJ.
key first downs for us, but like, just I'm not saying ignore Justin Jefferson, but maybe prioritize other looks.
Yeah, and I don't know exactly how many targets that Aaron Jones has, but I would love to see more Aaron Jones in the passing game, especially. And Aaron Jones is kind of a microcosm of, I don't know if that's the best word to use to describe my feeling about it, but Sam Darnold, for as much as we criticize Kirk Cousins for checking down, which was kind of a false narrative, he wasn't that much of a check down Charlie. Darnold needs to check down a lot more than he does because he was like 20 of 23 when he wasn't passing beyond 10 yards last week. One of his interceptions came passing within 10 yards, and that was the first interception he threw where like I give him some grace with that one. I don't like how he stared down Jefferson, but Pocket was collapsing. Jefferson flashed his numbers. Tyson Campbell just made a really good play. So Darnold throwing within 10 yards, as most quarterbacks are, he was pretty efficient. So if he can just, I guess it's not fair to say do more of that because he had like 23 pass attempts that were 10 or less last week. But if that keeps him from throwing interceptions 20, 30 yards down the field, then I'm all for it.
Yeah, it's also, I don't ever, how do I put this? I don't ever like to just write off our offense, but I think our defense should be able to have some scoring plays as well,
Yeah.
or at least tee the offense up really well, especially with them missing their right tackle. He's going to be out for the game too against our, like any team missing their, any offensive linemen, especially tackles against us, they're in for an interesting afternoon. Um, so I would see that. And I also don't want to insinuate this because I know teams don't really tank, but it's hard for me to imagine that the Titans are in a very like we're going to save the season mentality right now. So if you are able, they probably know they need a new quarterback next year, things like that. So if you can go out there and establish dominance pretty early on, maybe you can kind of get them to just mentally check out a bit. Not saying the players will do that, but we do see some weird games this time of year when you see a lot of when the league kind of has fallen in order and you see which teams are really bad. You start to see some teams, I don't want to say give up, but just self-sabotage a little bit.
Yep.
Maybe this will be a case of that because even within the AFC South, you have 2 or 3 teams that are all competing for prime draft position right now, and you got to think long term. So naturally, I think that they're just going to put their punter in to play quarterback if Levis has one incompletion.
I mean, Mason Rudolph is basically that. So,
Hey,
yeah,
hey, Mason Rudolph has somehow, I believe, a career winning record.
yeah. Well, playing for regular season goat Mike Tomlin will do that. Um, yeah, that was. I was gonna circle back to that too. Like, I am concerned that, and I'll say the Sam Darnold's tendencies instead of what the Vikings passing offense likes to do. Um, Sam Darnold plays right into what the Titans are good at defensively when going against an opposing quarterback. Really, the Vikings defense should really dominate the game so much that I'm not going to say just because they beat Jacksonville last week, oh, they only need to go score one touchdown against the Titans and they'll win, because they didn't score any against the Jaguars and they have a worse defense. If the Vikings get 2 touchdown drives and like 2 field goals, so if you can do the math on that, if they get like 20 points,
20
they should
points.
win. Yeah, very good.
Yeah.
That's my John Madden segment of the day. So it, yeah, I guess I'm just hesitant to say that this would be an offensive bounce back game, or Sam Darnold bounce back game in terms of scoring and being efficient and making the right decision and placing the ball correctly. Because, well, when he plays zone coverage, he sees ghosts.
Which is crazy because a lot of quarterbacks love to see zone. I just think it's his refusal not to force it to Jefferson.
Yeah, I wish he'd stop. I mean, for years, I was like, Kirk, just give Jefferson a chance. And he did that sometimes. He did it against the Bills in that one game, then decided not to do it in a playoff game where you have to convert that fourth down and you're going home. But whatever. But now it's with Sam, it's like, please stop forcing it to Justin. One, you're turning the ball over. Two, you're going to get the man hurt. And there just needs to be a healthy in between, because we saw Sam Darnold being something Kirk Cousins wasn't, and that was mobile and that was aware in the pocket. And he still is aware of the pocket. That hasn't really gone down with his play this year. But if Sam Darnold can just return to the 190, 200 yards and throwing multiple touchdowns a game like he was
That's all
the
we need.
first couple of weeks, like, he's not throwing the touchdowns because he's like making these spectacular passes. It's just like a good play call in the red zone.
Yeah, a lot
And the
of them
play,
were short passes overall.
yeah, and the play calling hasn't really regressed either. So if Sam can just settle down, then we'll be fine.
Yeah. It's
Which I don't know if he'll do that, because he hasn't done that. It's been 7 years of his career, 7 years of his career, he hasn't done that. So
it's so frustrating to know he just has to. I don't, man, because you're right. Like, we don't want to be like, why can't you just do what we got mad at Kirk Cousins for doing and play conservatively? But I think there's a middle ground that we're not seeing. Do I think he's quite at like Nick Mullins levels of psychotic behavior? No. Um, but I don't know what to expect. I think Snead being out is going to be massive.
yes,
I think that that's a game changer as far as just the offense being able to actually move the ball effectively through the air. Aaron Jones, I'm expecting to have a big game. You know, they're middle of the pack in rushing, but we're going to have to lean on him a lot. Trying to think really if there's anything in particular I'm watching for other than just to see if we have to rely on Parker Romo, if he's actually going to be consistent or was a one-hit wonder.
yeah. When did they have to fly you out?
I actually just show up, 5 minutes before kickoff on Sunday.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they send me a 12 pack and I just kind of down it on the plane.
And
Spirit Airlines.
that keeps making you go 4-4. Then
Yeah, I would gladly do that. Also, a couple things I'm seeing on the Twitter. Sam Laporta out for the Lions. Their injury report's pretty stacked, so that would be completely on brand for the Jags to be the team that them just having trouble against teams from Florida would be funny. And then the Vikings Cardinals game looks to likely be getting flexed to a Monday night game.
Yeah, my at my work, I have I am in HR where I work, and one of the managers guys, he's like an office now an office down from me. He just moved, and he's a Vikings fan. So shout out to Jr. He told me that good news yesterday.
Yeah, seems to be. I just had somebody message me on my work Slack and ask if I have any plans for it, and he's a Cardinals fan. And my plan is to watch at home because it's a Monday night and I'm boring as hell now.
For some reason, I didn't think they could flex like to an entirely different day.
They can with Monday night now from between weeks 12 and 17. What I am hoping is that this doesn't mean that we have the Bears game flexed because but I don't think if they flex you into Monday night, they flex you out of another one.
I doubt it, man.
But it's 2 weeks later in the same location, which is
I'd
what
be
throws me
pissed.
off
I'd be
because I'm
pissed if.
flying out that Monday.
Oh, that's right. You're going to that game. I'd be pissed
Yeah.
if I had tickets to a game that's getting flexed.
Oh, same. But technically, you now know that it's a possibility when you buy, or you buy tickets exclusively to games in non-flex weeks.
Fair.
It's also what you can do. So, I mean, we're playing the Titans. Last week's game was extremely unexciting. This is one of those things where, like, I'm sure we could say the same things we said last week. Well, the Vikings should win, but this will be a slightly better defense. To your point, you made a really good point about like where is their offense actually putting them on the field and what reflection does that have on yardage. So maybe I'm suddenly not as impressed with their offense when I've thought about or their defense when I think about that. But for me, as far as my prediction, this is another one of those games where the Vikings should dominate. So naturally, it's going to end up being like 24-18 or 24-21. But in reality, it probably should be closer to like 28-10.
I would agree, and I'd have to say that I think this will be a 23-16 Vikings victory.
And then naturally, though, Will Levis has it on the last drive under 2 minutes with a chance to tie the game. And he gets. Are we calling an interception to Bynum or are we calling a Grenard strip sack?
I'm calling a Dallas Turner strip sack. Yeah. And you know what's frustrating about that? It has nothing to do with the Vikings, is that Will Levis should be good.
It's all about where you go.
He has the arm talent of Josh Allen. He's just an idiot.
But it's all about where you go.
Yes. Do I like if he came here, I think he'd be like decent. But I don't know.
I wanted him a little bit. I like
I
him.
wanted us to draft him just for
I
the
wanted
chaos.
Richardson. Yeah, I wanted Richardson first, but definitely Will Levis was my next realistic option.
Probably a good thing we didn't sell the future for Anthony Richardson.
Yes. Could you imagine? That would
He
be
could
a much different situation. Having Kirk Cousins last year with a top 3 pick sitting behind him, constantly terrifying him, and then having to put Richardson in when Kirk went down would be. I'm so curious how that would have gone.
Kirkwood had to get therapy.
He's gonna. I'm surprised he didn't need to once Penix got a couple drives in this season.
Yeah, well, just imagining. I want to know like behind the scenes reaction. Like he was at home in the kitchen with Julie, and he's just like, "Frick, I can't believe they fricking did that." And
Sounds like it's about right because his agent came out and said that they were never told that was going to happen until they were on the clock.
yeah, well, when you're 36 years old, you're probably gonna get your replacement drafted sooner or later.
Especially
Just,
coming off a torn Achilles.
just a shame that it happened the year that you signed the contract.
Yep. So your final prediction's 23-16.
So true.
I'm going to stick with 24-20, I'm thinking.
I can see that. I can see just like a one or two absolutely unreal Will Levis because he makes some unreal throws. They're just surrounded by idiocy.
Outside of CJ Stroud, that entire class is quarterbacks who end up on highlight reels, either for doing some ungodly throw or for insanely stupid turnovers, like highlight reels. They're on highlight reels, sometimes for themselves, rarely, and most of the time for the other team, like the Will Levis meme from week 1 this year where he fell to his knees in disappointment and pain.
And that is probably how it will likely continue to go with the evolution of the quarterback position. Just being insane athletes and having insane talent, but not having it be all there.
That's why personally I want to draft a guy who historically runs within the offense, even if it's not producing the sexiest quarterback stats, because those guys usually, they know how to play within a system and execute on what a coach wants. So maybe, just maybe, we can get a quarterback like that eventually.
I hope we can do that. And I just really, really, really hope that one day this franchise will learn how to draft a quarterback in the top 10.
Yeah, if only.
Mm.
Well, you know what? It would really stink if the Vikings didn't have a future quarterback lined up. But Brev, even though you got the beanie on and you got the fall beard going, I bet you don't stink. Why is that?
Of course not, because I like to smell like autumnal. Is that the word? Smells, fall smells, like a wood barrel bourbon, maybe a pine tar. We're just coming off the summer. Back then, it was maybe a fresh falls, all from our great friends at Dr. Squatch, where you can actually use the link down below to get $10 off your purchase of $20 or more. If you like the show, if you're like, hey, these are two good looking guys. Hey, that guy that always has like the kind of bad camera quality and the fish in the background, his hair is insane. His beard looks insane. I want to look like him. Maybe I want to smell like him. Maybe you want to feel like a man and smell like Skolcial, where you can do that while also supporting us with the link down in the description.
Yeah. And maybe you weren't planning on going to the Vikings Cardinals game, for example, because maybe you have a weird work schedule where you work on Sundays, or maybe you had your family already make plans to come over from dinner with the in laws, something like that. Where are you raising your hand? You? Is that you?
Oh, sometimes I have a weird schedule where I work on Sunday and I'm off Monday.
Oh, got it. Okay. I thought you were insinuating you had family to hang out with, and I was like, no, that's not the. Actually, that's more about me. Anyways, and now suddenly that there might be a Monday night game that wasn't there before when the Cardinals come to visit the Minnesota Vikings, and you may want to get tickets to go catch a primetime game at US Bank Stadium. Why not use SeatGeek to save $20 off your first purchase using code BREV or using code JasonH? Go ahead and pick which one that you just think has the best facial hair right now. You got Brev and I almost the exact opposite situations going on. I got the cop stash. He has the Mountain Man Yeti beard. Go ahead and vote by using one of our SeatGeek codes. We won't really know until like 3 months from now when we see what SeatGeek says in regard to our code usage. But go catch a game. I've seen a lot of people who have just not even about like buying tickets, but like don't really want to buy into the Vikings because they don't think they're gonna have a shot at a Super Bowl this year. Remember, think back to March, think back to July, or even September, and really ask yourselves, is this a season that is really ultimately going better than we expected? And you'll probably say yes. So why not enjoy it? Go have some fun, go catch a game, and use code BREV or code JasonH for $20 off your first purchase with SeatGeek. Or go catch a Wild game. Wolves game should be super cheap also, apparently.
Are they?
They are not. I think they lost twice to Portland back-to-back nights.
Good. Shows how much I watch the NBA.
Yes, when I think of Brev, I think of massive NBA fan.
I am a certified Wolves bandwagoner, and I feel like that's
agreed.
Okay because I only ever watch the NBA in the playoffs anyway.
Yeah, I can't do regular season. Well, with that, we will see you guys. Brev, are you off Monday, Sunday? When are you off? What is your schedule now?
For the next couple weeks, I'm off Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Heck yeah. We'll probably see you guys Sunday then or Monday afternoon to talk about our post-game thoughts. And hopefully we can be in a better mood than we were last week after the game. Any last comments, Brev? I don't know. Okay, that's your last comment. Usually you have something better than just adjusting your beanie and saying meow into the mic.
Well, I was adjusting my beanie so hard that I've just like zoned out. What was your question?
We'll see you guys this weekend.